I want to say welcome to Jean Lang. Let's give a big CSC welcome to Jean. Maybe a little applause in the chat as well. Woo!
I want to let you
Awesome.
all know that I thrive off of human contact, and talking into a screen without knowing that there are people behind it is going to be real hard for me. So anything that you can put in the chat as you go, whether it's like woo or I'm not sure about that, or I think the answer is this, or hey, that reminds me of this time when something happened, I'm going to appreciate that a lot. This human interaction, very important to me. Sorry for interrupting you, Michael.
It's all good. I first met Jean at Code Mash in I think it was 2020, just before the pandemic hit. I took an improv workshop with her, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up giving a lightning talk about remembering names, and she remembered that, which is really impressive. I next met Jean at this year's Code Bash, and she was giving this very talk, and I knew that I had to have it at Software Craftsmanship. Because it was just such a cool concept, and I wasn't actually able to catch all of it. I don't know if she knew that, but I'm invited her to come talk to you all today. Now, Jean has been a software developer and a software development bootcamp instructor, and these days she's working for Kiavi as a TPM, one of the many PMing positions available in the industry. You can visit her LinkedIn to find out what the P stands for, among other acronyms. Tonight, Jean is here to perform her specialty act, explaining something arcane and confusing clearly and with enthusiasm. Please welcome Jean.
Thank you, everyone. I like to
Thank
imagine that
you.
you're all out there clapping in your own private space,
Woo!
waving your hands
Yes.
around in the air.
All right. Well, take it away. I will not distract you any longer. Have
Thank
fun.
you for the comments in chat. I very much appreciate it, everyone. And thank you for that introduction, Michael. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here tonight, getting to talk to you all. Oh, technical philosophy messenger. I might have to adjust my acronyms based on the suggestions of the crowd. So, keep them coming. Um, Today, we are here to talk about regular expressions. And the title of this talk, which I pronounce regex is for dot star, is a joke. We will come back to it at the end of the presentation and understand it, explain it if you haven't already understood it, because I firmly believe that jokes are funnier when explained. Um, Opinions are mixed on how you pronounce this word here on the screen, regex. I'm not going to talk about it any further other than to say that opinions are mixed, and I'm going to pronounce it regex. There's a link in the slide notes. I'll provide those, a link to the slides somehow to you all. If you want to go read about what people think about that online, I also welcome your opinions in chat. But that's the end of what I'm going to say about it. It's the same as you pronounce GIF. All right. So at the end of the talk, we'll come back to this joke, but let me explain what this talk is about. So what regular expressions are is a concept, a programming concept. They don't belong to any one particular language. It's not a Ruby concept or a C# concept or HTML or JavaScript concept. It's like math. Math is in many programming languages and looks very similar. It's a tool that you can use, except that the difference between math and regular expressions is that you learn about math in grade school, and so you're kind of familiar with it, whereas regular expressions are something that you may not have encountered until you reach programming world. Now, let's see. Maybe you're already a regexpert. And if you are, that's totally cool. If so, here's what you're going to get out of this talk, and you're welcome to just get it from this slide and go spend the rest of your hour doing something else, or you're welcome to hang out and see how it goes. I'm going to show you two cool websites, one for experimenting with and trying out regular expressions, and one for practicing your skills and learning more about regular expressions. Oh, thank you for putting that link there in the chat. So if anyone wants to see the slides and check ahead and look at those slide notes and any links in them, that's in the chat. And if you're already a reg expert, the other thing that you might potentially be able to get out of this talk is some thinking about how you would present to other people some sort of complex topic that is scary to them, because sometimes regular expressions are. Maybe the last time you encountered regular expressions was, in some code base where someone was using them and said, oh, that's a regular expression, don't worry about it, or changed it a little bit. Or you wrote one and you haven't looked at it since. Or you know you're supposed to be able to use them, but you haven't really encountered them in a while. Whether you've heard of them 0 times or many times, I'm happy to have you here. And let's talk about how you can get better at them, no matter where you are. All right, so regular expressions. Here's what they look like. Oh, and this is what it looks like when you go trying to learn about regular expressions. This is an example of a regular expression that matches an email. And there's a link in the slides to where I got this example from. When you come upon this and you're trying to learn how regular expressions work, this kind of thing is intimidating and not extremely helpful. So we're not going to start from here, although we will come back to here by the end of the talk. So let's rewind it a little bit. Regular expressions are used for pattern matching, for finding and matching patterns in text. So what is pattern matching? Here are some examples of things that it's used for. And you'll notice that I have some verbs highlighted there. And that's how you can think of useful things that pattern matching can be for. So for example, you might look at some text the user gives you and say, hey, is this a good email address? Is this a good IP address? Have you ever, typed into a field on a form and it says, hey, that's not a good email address. You have to try again. That's an example of pattern matching where they're checking to see if it matches the sort of pattern that they're looking for. And you have to be able to express that pattern somehow. For example, you might say that an email address is some letters followed by an at, followed by a something dot something. Maybe that's your pattern that you're trying to check in on for an email address. Or an IP address is, 3 numbers dot some numbers dot. See, I don't even know exactly what the pattern is, but if you can express it, maybe you can express it in a regular expression and be able to validate that a string looks like that. You can also check that some text doesn't contain some sort of text. For example, you might check a user's submission and say, I don't want you to submit any social security numbers to me because that's protected information. I'm not interested in having that in my database. So that's an example where you're looking for a pattern of 3 numbers dash 2 numbers dash 4 numbers. Okay, those are validate examples. We've also got, you might want to edit some text somehow, just a little bit. If you can express a pattern, like I want to remove all the white spaces and all the bullets that's in front of each line of text, that's a pattern that you could express with a regular expression. So validate, find, remove, replace, those are all things that you can use pattern matching to do. And regular expressions are ways to say what your pattern is that you're trying to do those things to. Some things that regular expressions are not for. It's not for spell check. Can you imagine trying to define what the pattern is for all of the correctly spelled words in English, or alternately, all of the incorrectly spelled words in English? That's a different sort of problem. And it's not for parsing programming languages, like telling if the parentheses match. That sort of parsing is a little more complicated than what regular expressions can do. In fact, the thing that regular expressions can understand is regular languages, which is a cool programming term that I took a class about once in college. If you know what regular languages are, I'd love your definition in chat. I don't quite remember. I know that it's the things that regular expressions can understand and parse. All right, so it's not for extremely complicated patterns like English speech or programming languages. It is for patterns that you can express and try to find in what you've got. Cool. That's what that's what pattern matching is used for. Okay, so we know that regular expressions are used for pattern matching and what we could use pattern matching for. So how do we write and use a regular expression? So let me start from the very beginning. And I'm going to start showing you some regular expression basics here. And the way that I'm going to do that is by coming over to a useful website called regex101.com. I'm not associated with them in any way. It's just a super useful site that when I took my extremely official poll of like 10 developer friends, this is the one that came up most often as the site that we use in order to check out regular expressions and make sure they're working. So let me show you how this works. So we might have some test text in here. Boy, last time I gave this talk, I had like some examples pre-written out. Example. Okay, I am a horse. Don't you know it? Llama. Okay, so cool. So I have some example text here that a user might have typed me into might have typed into a HTML form, or that I might be reading in from a file, right? And now I want to match some patterns in it. So what kind of patterns can I express? In this interface, your test text goes here, and then your regular expression that you're writing goes up here. So the sort of one of the most basic things you can do is type, a character, a single character, or multiple characters. And when you do that, it shows you down in this test area the parts of your string that match the regular expression that you typed in up here. So you'll notice when I typed E, it tells me that there are 10 matches in here, 10 E's. And you'll also notice that it doesn't find this capital E. Lowercase and capital are different characters for regular expressions here, unless we tell them to do it case insensitively. And I can type in multiple letters along the way, and here, because we're now looking for E followed by an X, then we see that it has fewer matchers along the way. Not only does it show you what matches, it also over here explains this regular expression and the different parts of it, which at this point isn't very important because it's, EX matches the characters EX literally. Thanks, explanation. But will become more useful as we go, because it's not just, it's not just literal characters. We also have wildcards. For example, the wildcard dot means any character. So what we're saying here is E followed by any character. And you can see that we're now matching EE down here and E exclamation mark also. So we can use this wildcard to help us find to help us find different things than just the literal characters. If it were just literal characters, we could just do a find. Many programming languages have a find on strings, right? But this is saying, find me an E followed by anything, which is not as easy to express with a literal string. And it gets much more complicated. So besides the wildcard of dot, we've also got the ability to express that we want how many of a thing we're interested in. So if we have the regular expression E, we could say E star. And what that says is give me one or more E's in a row. Now you're seeing this weird thing where it matches on one E, but it also matches on the absolutely nothing here, which is 0 E's. So there are 66 matches now. Okay, star means 0 or more. What about E followed by 0 or more things? You see what we're matching now? It's something slightly different. It goes all the way until the end of the string there. We could also say, we don't want 0 or more. We want 1 or more. So E plus gives me 1 or more E's in a row. So we're starting to be able to express patterns here. We talked about being able to match on like a social security number. Here's a secret. My SSN, oh, watch out. It's 999-99-9999. Is that enough numbers? Don't tell. That's not my real social security number. So up here, I could match on any number of nines followed by a dash, followed by a number of nines, followed by a dash, followed by any number of nines, right? But that's a very limited social security number matching. I could also, instead of literally saying 9, I could say, can you give me any digit? That backslash in front of the D, if I ask it to explain it, it says match a digit, anything in the class 0 through 9 there. You didn't need to know my social security number? Well, here it is. I also loved the finite automata class. I loved state machines. They were great. Okay. I'm watching the chat while I'm talking. It's good to see you talking there. All right. So you see this interface helps you to write and make sure that you're getting the right answer out of your regular expression, and then also understand what's happening in it. I think that's all that I want to introduce to you at first. Regular expressions get a lot more complicated, but just memorizing all the rules of them is part of what makes them awful. So we're not going to do that. Instead, let me come back to the presentation over here. And instead of just working through this site, right, we're going to learn about another site, which is the Regex Crossword. I see your question, Alex, and I will come to it in a moment. In this site, regexcrossword.com, we can do a crossword puzzle in order to learn about regular expressions. I am a firm believer in playing games in order to learn. I think that different games have so many things to teach us. Maybe when we're a kid, we learn how to hold many cards without showing them to everyone around us. I don't know if you've ever played cards with a small child, but that's a difficult skill. We learn how to lose gracefully. We learn strategy and thinking ahead and modeling the minds of our opponent or partner. Today, though, we're going to use a game to learn about regular expressions. So I love this site, regexcrossword.com. Also not affiliated with them. No one's paying me to say this. And what happens on this site, right, is that you get clues. This clue here, this strange string that looks kind of like hello, it applies to these two squares here. Each of these squares is going to need a letter in it. And when you put together these two letters, they're going to need to match this regular expression here. So let's go to the Regex crossword and try this out. And you're welcome to follow along with me on your own computer if you would like to. I see some people mentioning some other online games that they love, like Flexbox Froggies, great. CSS Diner is wonderful. If you know any other great games for learning programming concepts, please add those into the chat so that other people can benefit from them also. All right, so here on the regexcrossword.com, we are going to open up the beginner levels and start there. So the first beginner level here is entitled Beetles, and this is the one we were just looking at on the screen. I'm going to make it a little bigger so you can see it a little better there on the presentation. Cool. Okay, so what's going on here? How do we fill this in to make it work? I mean, when we've got 4 letters in here, then we get to press validate and see if it's right or not. But how are we going to make this work? So maybe you're already a reg expert and you've already filled this all in your brain and chortled jovially at the small joke that they have provided for you. But if you haven't, how would you figure this out? So let's take a look at this regular expression that they've offered to us. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to pull it over to regex101.com and I'm going to put it here in this regular expression box. And if I don't really know what this means yet, I can, ask it to explain it to me by hovering over here or by reading through over here. And what you'll learn about this regular expression format here is that the pipes in it, the vertical lines, indicate ors. They're alternatives. So this is saying that you can have HE literally, or you can have LL literally, or you can have O one or more times. So let's test our understanding here. So this looks like hello to me. And if I type hello, it doesn't match that at all. Why doesn't this regular expression up here that has an HE in it match this test string that has an HE in it? What's going on there? Dun, 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 dun. I'm giving you a moment to think about it yourself. I hope you're all screaming at your computer screens with passion as you say, Gene, you have to use the correct case. So here, if we type in hello with capitals, you remember that regular expressions are case sensitive, right? And now that we've typed this in, screaming, oh good. Now that we've typed this in here, we can see that we have 3 matches. We've matched the HE and the LL and the O. Cool, cool, cool. But I think that if I just put HE in here, that should match. And remember that on the crossword, we're looking for 2 letters to go across. So we're looking for some 2-letter pattern. So HE would work, LL would work, O matches, but if we want a 2-letter pattern, O plus means, where's my information? Scroll. O matches the character O, and plus matches the previous token between 1 and unlimited times. Okay, so between 1 and unlimited times, so OO is fine. As many O's as we want is fine, but for the crossword purposes, we want 2 of them. So what this clue is telling us is that these 2 letters across the top have to be either HE or LL or OO. Okay, but now we have to figure out which one of those it is. So in order to do that, I'm going to take a look at this other clue over here, right? Now, you can, if you want, rotate this around if it helps you to change the orientation of the crossword. But even as it is right here, I can just copy this one and take a look at it. Although you may notice that this is the same sort of format as this one. It's these pipes. So this is either E and then P, or I and then P, or E and then F. And if we combine the clues from this one right here, this second letter has to be an E, an L, or an O, and this first letter has to be an E, an I, or a P, we have figured out together with our powers, the powers of the 2 clues combined, that this must be an E. And if this is an E, then it goes with this part of the regular expression, which means that this must be an H. And we have figured out the first line of this regex crossword. All right, let's work on the second one. What the heck does this mean? We haven't gone over this yet. Well, if I want to find out what a regular expression means, what I do is I copy it and I pull it over to regex101.com. Now, I saw in the chat earlier that there are other regular expression websites. I think you mentioned regexr. Yeah, cool. So this is another website that lets you learn and build and test regular expressions, and you put your regular expression in up here and you put your text in down here, and then it explains it to you down here, right? I used to use Rubular all the time before I discovered Regex 101. So like there are many of these, and they're all going to have good features, and maybe one will feel better to you than another one. For the purposes of this talk and for the purposes of my life, usually these days I use Regex 101. Whatever works for you. I also saw some note in the chat that there are different languages, different computer languages, despite the fact that regular expressions are a common feature across programming languages, different languages treat them a little bit differently. Just like different programming languages treat, the plus sign a little bit differently. In some languages, if you add a string and an integer, you get errors. And in some languages, when you add a string and an integer, you get non-errors, and it's both the plus sign, right? Which is like math. So different languages have made different choices, and those are called flavors. If you look over here on the left side, you can choose which flavor of regular expression you're using there. So sweet. I also see a proposal for a Wordle clone based on regular expressions. How cool. All right, so now we're trying to understand this regular expression up here. And if we look over at the explanation, it says, I match a single character in the list, and then the plus means 1 or more times. Oh, so this is telling me that I need, 2 of these characters in a row. And if I look at this, I can see that it's matching LL, which is, L from the list, and then L from the list. But I think also if I put like LE, it also matches that. I'm picking 2 from the list, or, any 2 from the list, like PS, right? So what this is saying to me is that pick one of these letters and then pick another one of these letters. That's what the square brackets are. They set up a set, and it's like, any one of these is fine, whatever, So if I go back over here, it's telling me that I need, in this place right here, one of these letters, a P, an L, an E, an A, or an S. Cool. To find out which one, I'm going to have to look at this one. And this regular expression looks very similar to this one, but it is slightly different. When I pull it over to regex101.com, you see that this one is brackets with some letters inside of it, and it says match a single character that's present in that list. When I put this other one in, it says match a single character not present in the list below. And that's this this caret right at the beginning. The caret at the beginning says pick one that's not in this set for me, please. So, here it says, the E is not in that set, the P is not in that set, the S is not in that set. Okay. So if we go back here and look at this, it says we want a letter that is in please, that is not in speak. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Uh-oh, am I going to get in trouble for using music that's copyrighted? Are they going to recognize it from me singing it? I mean, I'm a pretty good singer. All right, so the letter that is in please, that is not in speak, is L. Sweet. Okay, we found part of it. And then finally, we see that this is EP or EF down here. And we know that the letter that goes in the final square has to be one of the ones in please, which means that this is help. And it's a Beatles joke. And if we validate it, it says, hey, you did a great job. And then it'll scoot us along to the next puzzle. I did this one slowly, but what I wanted to show you was that we can use even if we don't understand the things going on in the regex crossword yet, we can use a website to help us understand it, to test out our understanding, and thereby to learn more about regular expressions along the way. Listen, if you all were in front of me, what I would do is I would look at your faces and understand if you wanted to do another regex crossword together here. We could go straight to one of the intermediate or experienced levels, or if you want to go do it on your own later. Give me some responses in chat. Do you want to do it now together and do another crossword, or do you just want me to move on with my slides so you can go do the regex crossword on your own or on the Zoom call together? Basically, the first person to speak up gets to decide. All right. Now or Zoom. Let's do one on the Zoom. Let's do one on the Zoom when we can all see each other. I'll share my screen there if I'm allowed to, and if not, we can just talk about it. All right, sweet. All right, we looked at regex101.com to learn about how to understand and test out regular expressions. We learned about the regex crossword to learn about how to be exposed to more parts of regular expressions and learn about those. Cool. But what if you have to write a regular expression someday? What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? What if someone says to you, hey, I need you to write a regular expression for this purpose, please go ahead. Maybe you're going to go to the regex crossword and see what you can do. Panic is the first step. Great, get it out of the way. All right, we're done with panicking. What are you going to do next? I would really like you to think about the answer, and you're welcome to share it if you want, but I would really like you to think about in your head, what steps would you follow if you need to write a regular expression for what you're doing? The first step that I would like you to follow is to consider if you actually need to. Why are you using regular expressions for these purposes? They're very powerful, yes, but they're also, they're cryptic and much easier to write than they are to read. And you're kind of adding potentially some debt into your code when you're putting a complicated regular expression in it. So consider, do you actually need a regular expression? Is there some other way that you could be doing this that would make some more sense? Okay, you actually do want to use a regular expression. maybe your next step is to go to some site and test it out, right? Oh wait, no, sorry, I skipped another important step. The next important step is to say, has someone already written a regular expression that I can use? Let's go to the internet for a moment and search for regular expression for email address. And well, let's see, where have I been before? Let's check this one out. So this site has this overly simple one, and these ones getting a little more complicated. I think this isn't my favorite site that I've seen before. And this one that gets even a little more complicated. Someone thought about a whole lot of things in here that I'm not sure that I would think up if I were expressing what is an email. So it's possible, that someone has already thought up a good regular expression and you shouldn't worry about writing your own, right? So it's always a good idea to look it up. I wonder which one. I'm gonna go back in my slides for a second here to this good one, which I pulled this example from here. And do I have the text? No, I don't have the texts. Shoot. Okay, well, we're gonna oh, I copied it into the slide notes that I could copy it into regex101.com. Thank you, Past Gene. I appreciate your loving help. Okay, so if we go to, and there's a good point in chat here, email validation can often be too restrictive. Absolutely, we're about to see an example of that. So I'm gonna stick this regular expression in here that I showed you on a slide earlier, and we are going to work on understanding it together. Okay, so far we have no email addresses in our example string. I'm gonna check and just make sure here. I'm gonna put my for real email address on here. So if you want to email me, please do. I'd love to hear from you. My email is jean.f.lange@gmail.com. So here you go. It says that's an email address. I match all these parts. Boy, if I wanted to understand this, I don't know if I'm ready to look at this whole thing at a time. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get rid of most of it. I see this @ sign. I assume that's going to match this @ sign in the middle of the email. So I'm just going to look at the stuff before the @ sign and try to understand what that means first, right? So let's see. If we look at this, we've got the character set, those brackets there, right? And then slash. So a single character from this list one or more times. So it's like some letters put together, some characters put together that go before the @ sign. Okay. /W means any word character, A through Z, capital A through Z, 0 through 9. So it's saying, I could have like 0 horse broccoli bro, 0 horse bro. So that's an okay thing to go before @gmail.com. Okay, cool. Any word character, and then it says a single character in the list, dot underscore percent plus minus. So it's fine if it's horse minus bro or horse percent bro. Okay, those things all match. That's fine. But it doesn't have like a $sign in there. That breaks it. It says horse percent $sign bro is not a good email address in there. Yeah, horse battery staple. Okay, so I've understood it that far. Okay, so it's saying that before the @ sign, I can have one or more characters of a word character and then a dot, an underscore, a percent, a plus. Okay, oh boy. I'm creating a good email address here. Horse dad bro. Okay, cool. All right, I feel like I've sort of understood that part and what it does. So let's look at, oh, and I see a comment. I didn't realize you can have a percent in a Gmail email address. This pattern says I can. I don't know if it's correct or not. That's another thing about looking up regular expressions that other people have written. You got to find out if it's right. You got to do some due diligence on it first. I'm giving you the how do I understand regular expressions. The how do I make sure that this is a good regular expression to use is maybe another separate talk. Okay, so let me put the rest of this regular expression back in, or double it there. So then we have an @ sign, so horsebro @. And then it says, so we've got a character class and plus, and it's any word character plus a dot or a dash. So at museum, so I think if I get rid of this part, that should be fine. Yep. Okay. So the thing after the at, like museum, is fine. I can put a dash in there, and I can put a dot in there if I want. I saw an example about flow space. So let's try putting battery at flow space. Was that what it was, or was it flow dot space? Cool. Yeah. So it recognizes that so far. That's cool. Okay. I feel like I've understood this next part. So let me put the whole regular expression back in. And then it says, and then you have to have a dot, the character dot, literally. Okay. And then any character that is a letter, lowercase or capital. And we haven't seen this yet, but what this syntax means is, for the last thing I just said, do it between this number and this number of times, inclusive. So it's between 2 and 4 characters after that dot. So this is saying that space is no good, but I could do flow.space.com, and that's okay, because the flow.space gets caught by this, and then the com gets caught by this part. Okay, so that's an example of, using regex.com to find and play with and understand an email address, a regular expression that you find on the internet somewhere. This sort of experimentation is pretty cool, and a super big part of my workflow as a developer. Is just trying it out, writing a little test, see what happens when you do it. Okay, so back to our slide that we were actually on. Okay, so what if you have to, we just did, what if I have to read a regex? Maybe I should have done that first. But what if I have to write one? The process is very similar. You put in your test text that you're trying to match against, and then you work through the regular expression and look up how to do the bits. And, we have a reference down here, common tokens, like, what are these things? If my font were smaller, you'd actually be able to read these, but it gives you a reference, and there are other references that you could look up for how to match things. You know how to search Stack Overflow, right? That's cool. But you can use an interface like this to write a regular expression that works for your test patterns. My least favorite thing that people do when I'm giving them a coding interview is edit a regular expression without testing it. It hurts my heart every time, and I want to refer them to this talk and ask them to just try it out. Make sure it does what they think it does. Sometimes they get it right anyway. It's okay, but it hurts my heart when you do it. All right. Okay, writing a regex or reading a regex, there you go. What if you have to use one in a programming language? Well, it's something you can look up, just like anything else. Let's see. Regex example Ruby. Here you go. Here's a cool tutorial about how to use regular expressions in Ruby, right? Here's some example code that will say, does this string match the regular expression like? And after you figured out what your regular expression is that you want to use, wow, how did I close that? Okay. After you figured that out by using regex101.com, you can just insert that in the middle of your code. So that useful search that I just did, regular expression, example, name of programming language, you got it. You know how to do it. Try it out. After you've got your regular expression and inserting it into the programming language are kind of two separate concepts that go together beautifully, but you can do them in separate steps, which is really useful. All right, that's it. That's the end of my advice that I have here for you today. I promised you that at the end we would get back to explaining the joke, because jokes are funnier when they're explained. Dot, means any character, any number of times. Sorry, dot means any character, and star means any number of times between 0 and many. So what this talk title is telling you is that regex is for anyone and also no one. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate you being here. You are welcome to email me or reach out to me on whatever platform you can find me on. I'd be delighted to hear from you. And if I can figure it out, I will be in the Zoom call for in a moment to come talk to you all.